yearly based results, and I would like to start with main events from last year. Although we had quite a tough year, we managed to increase the revenue and EBITDA level, and that's very much because of growth of passenger volumes. The volumes doubled and reached 7 million, and we had quite a good trend or doubling from Helsinki route, from Stockholm route, and also from cruise. The increase of passenger volumes helped us a lot to compensate decrease of cargo business due to the sanctions to Russia and Belarus. Here we had decrease of revenues around 20%, but I will come back to that. Then in the beginning of summer, our supervisory board made the decision to invest to Paldiski Harbour wind farm quay. That's important decision. That's decision for the future growth, and we see really that we entering to the new business area is what is serving the wind farms, the installment and maintenance of wind farms, and we just got the proposals from the tender for the construction of the quay, and everything goes as planned. We have to start quite soon because we have to be ready in summer 2025. Then we will see the first revenues also. Then we closed completely the Paljassaare Harbour, that was sold already a couple of years ago, and now we really closed the operations and aquatorium. We moved on last year with planned investments, and one of the biggest was the Terminal D area. We finished it, we completed it, it's under the operation. Everything is as we planned, basically. Also, a very important step was our designs of Old City Harbour detailed plans that was public in the end of the year. That's of course in cooperation with city government, and that gives us good platform to move on with detailed plans and to really fix and confirm the detailed plans for the Old City Harbour area. And then it's possible to start real estate business and start with the tenders. There was a launch of a new ship MyStar from Tallinn, quite an important step for us also, in terms of volumes, in terms of new product, and definitely that's increasing usually the interest and volume of passengers. And then we prolonged Botnica's agreement with Baffinland for the summer season. And also our government made important decision not to exercise the option to purchase the ferries from us. That gives us very good position in new tender. Very important decision and positive decision, of course, for the port of Tallinn. And then we closed due disputes last year with Tallinn and Worldwide Cargo. And from the June last year, there is a new supervisory board in action. with good cooperation with management board. Now to the Q4, as usually we describe the trends, and then we show the figures. And starting with passenger business, we have seen continuing growth in passenger numbers, although there was a decline in revenues due to the less ship calls, mainly, plus some lowered port fees. On cargo side, decline was minus 17%, although in revenues -5%. But all in all, the trends were the same. Decline came from liquid bulk and from fertilizers due to the sanctions, and there was some additional sanctions also from December. Therefore, that was in our prognosis, and the decline was smaller than we expected, actually. Ferry business revenue growth was 12% from additional trips and bigger number of passengers, but also from the indexation. And under the other segment, Botnica did a little bit less charter days than last year. Here are the volumes from Q4 and year. As I mentioned, we reached 7 million. We doubled the number, and maybe important for us is also that we see the quite stable ship calls over the crisis. That's maybe the most important from this slide. On cargo volumes, on Q3, -17%. If you take yearly basis, then we lost around 20%, and the decrease came from liquid bulk and dry bulk. These are fertilizers. But positive is that all the other cargo types show the increase, especially ro-ro and containers. And again, quite stable number of cargo vessel calls. That's important, although we lost the transit from Russia. Shipping volumes are there. On the ferry side, the passenger number increased to the level of previous crisis period, and on Botnica side, a bit smaller charter days than last year. But both business model shows quite a stable development. Future outlook. We believe that passenger business recovery continues. From the discussion from operators, and we see the same, that there are new segments traveling from Finland to Estonia. There are more younger people plus families. Therefore, we see such a positive shift in a segment. Therefore, we believe that there is interest for travelers, and we believe that there will be continuous growth. But visibility is not very good, honestly. Therefore, that's just the prognosis. As I mentioned, the impact of sanctions against Russia and Belarus was smaller than we estimated, but it's also valid for this year, because the impact is split between last year and this year. And in this situation, it's extremely important to find the new growth. Therefore, we're working very heavily to find new ro-ro and container lines plus customers. And here we see certain positive developments together with our operators. For example, in January, there was a new line from CDMA established in Muuga Harbour. We're negotiating with ship owners about the new Ro-Ro lines. Therefore, it's really important to find new growth there. And historically, we already built such a strategically south-north corridor to serve more and more Scandinavian countries. I mean, not only Finland, but more and more Sweden also. Therefore, that's under the focus. As we already mentioned, then offshore wind farms, all the business model is also in our focus, and we see the growth possibility and long-term business to build the harbour for installment and maintenance, but also maybe invest to the maintenance vessels, which is now analyzing that. Therefore, there are quite a positive possibilities for us as a port. Then we're preparing for the new contracts, and probably we will have this year new tender for the next period in our ferry business. And also we see the increase of offshore business globally. Therefore, there are new possibilities for also our offshore ship Botnica. And this year we prepare the real estate business model. If everything goes well and we're moving on with detailed planning, then we have to be ready with business models with the communication, marketing to start really the real estate and announce the tenders in this old city port area. All right, then Andrus will continue with numbers.
Thank you, Valdo. Good afternoon from my side as well. I will continue with the financial results. As Valdo described, the year 2022 was quite successful, actually very successful for passenger harbors, where the number of passengers doubled, and it also impacted the financial results. It was also a good year for our ferry services, very stable year for segment other, where mainly the operations of Botnica are, and at the same time for cargo harbors, the year was quite challenging. But all in all, we can say that despite of the sanctions and drop in cargo volumes, the negative impact was lower than we expected. As we look at the results of fourth quarter, we see a decrease in revenue. Here we can bring out mainly two reasons. Firstly, revenue drop was caused by sanctions and lower amount of cargo. Due to that, we have less vessel calls in cargo harbors and the revenue decreased. But at the same time, in the Q4 this year, the number of vessel calls decreased also in passenger harbor segment. To explain that, one ship which we are operating Tallinn-Helsinki route was chartered out. This impacted the revenue, and also the impact of the compromise which we made in the first quarter 2022, that we lowered the port fees for RoPax ships which are visiting our Old City port regularly. So this impact came on the picture on the fourth quarter. In the second and third quarter, we had some quite good number of vessel calls from cruise ships, and this helped to offset it. But in the fourth quarter, we didn't have cruise ship calls, and the impact came, or we see the impact in revenue. And the second impact was elevated revenue level in 2021 as we sold the assets in Paljassaare Harbour, where we sold the electricity distribution network or grid. So from there we received 0.4 million euros additional revenue, and when we take this out, then the revenue would be in 2021 in the Q4 lower. The profitability and the profit figures in the fourth quarter showed a drop or a decrease, mainly due to higher cost level, and the costs were mainly impacted by three cost items. First, the electricity and fuel costs, which have been higher throughout the whole year. Second impact is related to personnel costs, and the impact we can separate it or split it to two parts. The cost pressure is quite high in shipping sector in terms of wages and salaries. So we made some changes there, and also we adjusted provision for performance linked bonuses based on the financial results of 2022, and this has also impacted the labor costs. And the third impact on costs is related to one-off impact from credit losses on trade receivables. We estimated that some receivables are uncollectible in the future due to the overall economic situation and the drop in cargo volumes, which impact also our clients. So from there we had also extra impact, minus 500,000 euros. And in 2021 we had on this cost item opposite impact. It means we collected some receivables which we had already estimated as uncollectible. So all in all, the impact was around 3 to 4 million euros, and those factors which impacted the profitability. Operating profit was 2.6 million euros, and decreased by 60%. In the fourth quarter 2022, we had also 82,000 euros income tax, as we expected the income tax from dividends of our joint venture company Green Marine, according to the accounting rules. And profit for the period decreased by 75%. In addition to overall cost level and cost pressure, it was also impacted by higher interest payments in the second half of the year. And we invested 1.4 million euros in the fourth quarter, which is almost by 70% lower than in Q4 2021. but it was totally by our plans and by our plans and main investments were already completed by the end of the third quarter. There was some maintenance investment in the fourth quarter. As we look at the results for full year, then we see that growth in basically all main figures. The revenue growth was 11% or more than 11 million euros. And the main support to the growth came from passenger harbour segment, from passenger fees. Also, the revenue from ferry business increased by 3.8 billion euros or 12%. The rental revenue grew by 12%, 1.2 million euros. So these were the revenue items which grew the most. Adjusted EBITDA increased by 3.3%, and the percentage-wise, the growth was significantly lower than in revenue. But here, also like in the fourth quarter, we can say that the cost pressure was high, and therefore the growth here has been lower than in revenue. Adjusted EBITDA margin lowered a bit from 49% to 46%. Operating profit grew by 3.5 million euros and amounted to 30.8 million euros. Income tax was 28% higher than in 2021. We paid out more dividends. In 2022, the dividend payout was 25 million euros. In 2021, it was a bit more than 20 million euros. And this reflects also in income tax. Profit for the period was basically the same as in 2021, which we consider a good result. And investments decreased by 6%, but it was according to our budget, and the main projects were involved with the Old City Harbour. Like Valdo mentioned, we opened the new surrounding area for Terminal D. We upgraded some galleries which connect the terminals to the ship, and also made some repairments or building works for shoreline reinstallment. And in Muuga Harbour we improved the Ro-Ro traffic equipment as we built a new two-story ramp for Ro-Ro ships. When we look at the revenue over the years and also profitability, we see that the revenue before the years of crisis was quite stable on the level of 74 million euros, and during the years of crisis, the level has been around 55 million euros. And here we can say that we have managed to keep the EBIT level on monetary-wise, which we also consider a good result, taking into account all the circumstances. Now here are the results by segment-wise. In the fourth quarter, the ferry segment was the one where we see the growth. The revenue grew by 12% and EBIT 28%. And the revenue growth is mainly attributable to indexation. We we can index the revenue there regularly on quarterly basis, and therefore the revenue has increased, and the EBITDA growth is partly attributable to the elevated cost level in 2021, where we made a bigger dock works for our ferries. In the passenger harbour segment, in the fourth quarter, we see a drop in revenue and also in EBITDA. On revenue side, in passenger harbour segment, there was increase in passenger fees, but the offsetting or negative impact from vessel dues was higher, and therefore the revenue fell. The cargo harbour has been impacted by the sanctions throughout the year. The revenue decreased by 5%, which is less than the drop in cargo volumes. And also due to the cost pressure, the adjusted EBITDA has decreased. In the segment other, revenue decreased, and this reflects or corresponds to the lower number of charter days. We had 18 days lower charter period in summer, and this is nothing extraordinary. We can say that the number of charter days is same as in 2020, and we can say that it was exceptionally high in 2021, and therefore we see a drop here. But on 12 months level, 3 segments out of 4 showed increase both in revenue and EBITDA. The highest growth was in passenger harbour segment, where the revenue increased more than 35%, and the growth in EBITDA was about 30%, and it is mainly related to passenger fees, higher number of passengers, and also higher number of cruise ship calls. In cargo harbour segment, there has been decline throughout the year, and by the end of the year, the drop was less, about 2 million euros in revenue and a bit more in EBITDA, and this is mainly affected by sanctions, and in the fourth quarter there was additional impact from the sanctions which were imposed from the beginning of December, where the Estonian government imposed the sanctions or total embargo basically to the crude oil and oil products from Russia, and this had also extra impact to the Q4 results. Ferry segment showed good results. We made 6% more trips, and due to the indexation and good, we have managed to keep the costs here on a normal level, or therefore we see also good growth here. And in segment other, which contains mainly the operations of Botnica, despite of the drop in charter days, we see growth here, and on EBITDA level, the growth was also supported by good results from our joint venture company Green Marine. So moving on with cash flow and financial position. Cash from operating activities increased by almost 2 million euros due to the fact that receipts from sale increased more than payments to the suppliers. Under this row, we have also one million euros higher dividend income tax from dividends, and when we take this out, the cash from operating activities would be even higher, more positive. Cash used in investing activities was minus 114,000 euros, although we invested almost in same amount as in 2021. To explain that, we received 3 different grant payments from EU funds. About 5 million euros we got from Twinport 2 project. Those project investments we already completed in 2021, but the payment was in 2022. Then we received grant payment from Twinport 3 project, which covers most of the biggest investment project for 2022. And we also received one upfront or prepayment from Est Military Mobility Fund, and there we are. This is in connection with our new investment project as we are building a new quay in Paldiski South Harbour. Cash used in financing activities is 12.6 million euros higher than in 2021. Here we paid more dividends. This impact is 5 million euros, and we also reimbursed bonds in amount of 7 million euros. This reimbursement we didn't have in 2021, and therefore from there we got the extra impact to the cash used in financing activities. So the net cash flow was 9.5 million euros, which is 1.4 million euros higher than in 2021. Net debt decreased by 25.5 million euros due to the loan repayment and reimbursement payments for bonds. And on financial position, we see that cash on bank accounts has increased. At the same time, the gross debt has decreased. And this gave us a good position to keep our dividend promise. And from management board side, we make a proposal that we pay out at least 70% of our net profit to dividends. And with that, we will finish our presentation. We have some extra slides about revenue generation for just information, and we will make a short break. You can submit questions by typing them in, and we will back in 5 minutes time. So see you soon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome back. We have some questions sent by webinar, but also we have one question sent up front, and these questions we will answer. The question was the big rise in operating expenses and personnel expenses in Q4 compared to the 2022 and 2021. Can you give some color on what is causing this and if they are temporary or permanent? Thank you for the question. As I already explained, on operating costs, there was two cost items which impacted the results. One was the price of electricity and fuel, which was around 1 million euros higher than in the Q4 in 2021. And this, we can say that electricity prices have lowered a bit in the beginning of 2023. So this impact is not permanent, but here we are dependent on the overall cost level. So this is the cost which we can't impact much, but or influence much. But the second influence came to operating costs from credit losses on trade receivables. This cost item is one-off or temporary, and the impact was about 1 million euros. So this was a one-off impact. And personnel expenses were about 1.1 million euros higher than a year before in the Q4, and about 50% of the rise was impacted or was as a result of changes in personnel costs. This part is permanent, and half of it is related to performance-based bonuses, which is temporary or depends mainly on the results, economic results of the company.
Mm-hmm. The next question we got also via email. Are you planning to develop and operate wind farms, or are you just providing port facilities to a developer? The question is about the positioning in our wind farm business. We position us to really provide port facilities, and as I mentioned, maybe we're just analyzing that. Maybe we will also invest to the maintenance vessels, but we are not going to develop or operate the wind farms.
Mm-hmm. Next question. Hello, could you please give your view why Q4 2022 was rather weak for Tallinna Sadam, but very strong for largest your client and partner Tallinn Group? Here we can comment our results, and our results were affected or impacted by sanctions and by cargo harbors, where the share of Tallink is very minor or zero. So and we had also some one-off costs, as I described, due to the bonus system and due to the credit losses, which are one-off costs. So I think the main impact came from there.
Mm-hmm. Next question. What is your feeling about the new tariffs agreement with Tallink? Very generally saying, we feel it as a balanced agreement, and therefore it's in our prognosis already, and that's very, very briefly. What increase in ro-ro and container vessel calls do you expect in 2023? As I mentioned, we're really working on it, but we had in Q1 already, or in January, one additional line. Therefore, we expect some 5 to 10% increase of ro-ro.
How much of the increased personnel costs in Q4 was due to performance compensation? Does this happen every quarter or only in the end of fourth quarter? The sum or the amount of the cost is about 500,000 euros, and this covers the whole year, and this happens only in the fourth quarter. So the impact this is in the is only in the fourth quarter.
All right, then thank you for the questions. Thank you for the attention and for the trust, and all the best for the year.
All the best.